Hi, this is Sarah Trott, and welcome back to the Fourth Trimester podcast. I have a great topic for us today. It's actually about identity shifting, but from a different angle than we've previously discussed on other episodes. We're talking about the self trust and self knowing that we can learn in part from storytelling. We can learn from the stories of the past and, in fact, even mythology, and we can learn what it means to have these rites of passage and process the change in identity that we have in a proactive way and in a thoughtful way rather than being in survival mode. So, my special guest today is Britta Bushnell, and she brings over 25 years of real world experience supporting families through birth and early parenthood. She blends psychology and lived clinical insight and deep understanding of how humans make decisions under stress to help parents build their own confidence, not by ignoring evidence, but by learning how to use it wisely and do what's right for them. And she is also an author, so we're going to ask her to share a little bit about her book and what that's all about, and maybe even tell us a story in the podcast. So, welcome, Britta.
Thank you, Sarah. It's wonderful to be here, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Can you tell us a bit about yourself in your own words?
Yes, and this is always, one of those tricky parts where you go, how far back and what am I supposed to tell? But I got into the work with childbirth through being a yoga teacher. And that was my first foray. And my boss was like, you're a yoga teacher, you're pregnant. Why don't you teach prenatal? That makes sense. And my brain was like, sure, why not? Okay, let's do that. And I found I loved it. And I found that parents were coming back after they'd given birth saying, no, 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 Britta, you don't understand. My birth was really intense. And I had given birth and I was like, yeah, I get it. Birth is really intense. So I realized in some way I was communicating that they should be able to yoga their way through labor and birth and new parenthood, that it should look somehow meditative or, Zen in some way. And that made me go, somehow I'm communicating this all wrong. And so that's when I went to do a deeper dive. And that led me to Birthing from Within. I was a co-owner and director of the mentor program for several years at Birthing from Within until in 2009, I left the organization entirely. I wasn't a co-owner at that point, but I left the organization entirely and had gotten my PhD at that point in a in mythology with an emphasis in psychology. Now, you might think like, okay, wackadoodle, mythology, psychology. What are you talking about, Britta? How does this have anything to do with birth and childbirth and postpartum? But it does, because it was a doctorate in the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves. And we tell a lot of stories about ourselves. And so I wrote my dissertation called Forceps and Candles was the title. Um, American Myths in Contemporary Childbirth, something like that was the subtitle. And it was basically what ended up being the research phase of the book that I ended up publishing in 2000 called Transformed by Birth. And it looks at what the messages are that we are drinking every day through the air that we breathe, through the media we consume, through the news that we read. We are receiving messages about who we're supposed to be. And I looked at that and said, look at how this influences how we give birth. And how might we, rather than taking these cultural ideals, I address 8 cultural ideals in the book. And that's kind of the main part of the book, is those 8 cultural ideals that range from the desire for control and the need for certainty to the 8th one, which is the quest for perfection and exceptionalism, and looks at a whole bunch in between. There's 6 others, and says, how are we using these against ourselves? Like the desire for control and the need for certainty. that permeates childbirth. It permeates postpartum. The idea that we should be able to control things, that certainty is actually something we should strive for, and that these work against us when we're moving through the rite of passage of becoming a parent. And so that work was the sort of culmination of my doctorate and my work with parents, because I've been a childbirth educator for almost 25 years. And then I'm also a mom and now a grandma. And so I also have the lived experience of my own journey and the journey of my family members as well.
What a story, even just hearing your journey. I really appreciate that. Uh, there's so much there I want to talk about. I mean, even just the idea of having a birth plan. We call
Exactly.
it a plan, like it's something you could just write down and then it happens. There's so much in our lives we can plan.
Yes. I mean, even the due date is one of the very first ones that gives the illusion of control, the illusion of certainty, or a birth plan, as you say, that gives us this sense that we should be able to control this thing, and that the highest version of it would be something that we can control. And you and I both know, and anybody who has parented an infant or a toddler, or in my experience, all the way through teenage years, knows that parenting defies control. It defies certainty. We are dealing with another human. And when we are dealing with another human, the illusion of control is busted. And birth is the rite of passage into that awareness that we do not have control, or it can be. But we really like control, so we go into it kicking and screaming. We go into it loving our due date, loving the idea of a birth plan, loving clarity about what needs to happen and tell me the quote unquote right way to give birth, or the right provider to hire, or XYZ. There's so many different ways to get that messaging that there's a right way to do it. There's a right way to control it. There's a right way to get clarity and certainty. And it misses the piece that says when we are going through a rite of passage, a transition of knowing who we are, lack of control, lack of certainty is inherent, not a problem to be solved.
And it can be disappointing potentially for someone who has these kinds of expectations around things going a certain way for the birth, for after the birth.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think
Yeah.
that that's a piece that needs a tremendous amount of respect
Hmm.
and empathy and tenderness about, because even if we have spent our lives drinking and eating in these cultural expectations,
Hmm.
of course we want things to go smoothly. Of course we want to have control and certainty. And when things don't go as we want them to, which is inevitable if it isn't during pregnancy or conception or birth or early postpartum, it will come at some point in parenthood because of the nature of the job. That there is grief about the lost expectation, the missed expectations, the longing for it to be all that we want it to be. We are very complex beings. And when we expect ourselves to have a singular experience, we are undervaluing our multifacetedness. I'm a big proponent of and. And yet
Yes.
all of what we get sold is or. It's this or that. It's this or that. And really we're and people.
Yeah.
We can be thrilled and wildly disappointed in the same moment. You know, I
Oh, yes.
yeah.
We can have so many feelings at the same time, and so many things could be. So, what's the opposite of the control? Like, if we were speaking to someone who is having their first child,
Yes.
how would we reframe some of that?
So there's a quote that I love from a Michael Sandel article called I think it's called the Gift of Imperfection. Um, I think that's the name of it. I can try and track it down for you, but the the quote is about an openness to the unbidden. And to me that and it's a quote about parenting that we can choose our partners, we can choose our job, we can choose, or at least have an illusion of being able to choose and control those things. But our children, we don't get to, sign up a list of our desired options. I'll often say to parents, like, did you check the box for a really good sleeper when you signed up for your baby? Right? Because if we could, we would. We would check that box. All of us, I don't know anybody who would not check the box, I want a baby who sleeps really well.
And
But
none of
we
them do, by the way. That's a myth.
right?
P.S.
And
None of them do.
they just don't. And so his statement is that it's an opportunity for a profound spiritual practice of being open to the unbidden, being open to that which we did not choose. And that to me is sort of the antithesis or the other side of what does it mean to be attached to certainty and control is an openness to go, huh, what did I get today? What is today sending me? What is this moment? Who is this child in front of me? I have a couple of kids. I have two kids I gave birth to and a bonus daughter. And they each needed different things. And so even that required an openness to the unbidden. What my firstborn needed was very different than what my youngest needed. And that is still true today. And so I have moments when I'm with one child and I'm like, "Oh, I've figured you out. I know what it is that you need." And there I am. I've got a sense of control. I've got a sense of certainty. And then I visit my other child and I'm like, "Oh, wait. Whoa. Okay. Now the ground is rocking again. I've got to re-move into that place of openness to and I do that with that voice because that is what it requires is okay, I'm going to practice letting go of the expectation that I had
Uh-huh.
and come back to an openness to this moment, to this child, because everything's always changing.
It
Parenthood,
is.
man, parenthood rocks our sense of stability because you wake up and you have a different child than you had the day before.
Absolutely. Well, we're all evolving as humans, even at our ages as middle-aged humans. We're changing all the time. So the expectation of the child not changing. Well, it's this is about human trajectory over
Yeah.
time. I hope to continue to change and learn and grow for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I mean, I just had a big experience. We went traveling over the holidays not so long ago. And we went to a foreign country where they drive on the other side of the road. And there were multiple different reasons where I was like, I actually think I want my children to be the drivers of the rental car. They they are exceptional drivers. They have really adaptable brains still, and they have quick twitch muscles that at my age, it's like, I just was like, you know what? I think that the 20s and 30s, they're the ones who need to be driving these rental cars. And it felt like a really big moment for our family. I didn't drive 1 mile or kilometer, which is where we were. I didn't drive 1 kilometer. They did all the driving, and it was both hard for me to, like, be in the back seat, literally, as well as being emotionally in a place where I let go. And I will sometimes say that parenting, and this kinda goes along with that openness to the unbidden, but parenting is a perpetual journey of letting go.
Yeah.
From the
Is that
time you give birth, I don't know until when, because 'cause I'm not at the end of the journey, but it's a over and over again, an evolution of letting go.
that's so well said. Did you experience some of this in your own fourth trimesters?
Yes, absolutely. My 4th trimesters, I I was really fortunate with my firstborn that my mom came down and lived with us for a couple of days. And those couple of days were really helpful. Um, Even just a couple of days, and then she would come back. But at the time, we were living in a single room studio, so it was me, my husband, and our newborn, and my mom all living in one room. So, so just a couple of days was about all we could navigate at a time. And yet having that was incredibly helpful to yeah, just have moments where I can remember one of the earliest nights my baby was fussing, as newborns do, and I was exhausted from my labor and birth journey. And I had a single room, and I had this baby that was asking. He wasn't interested in nursing at the time. He wasn't, we were dealing with getting that all figured out, and he wasn't interested in sleeping. He just was interested in testing his lungs. And I get it. He needed to test his lungs. There were lots of reasons why he was testing his lungs. And I went into the only room that I could close a door, which was the bathroom, and I sat there on the toilet with my newborn, trying desperately to get him to calm and to sleep while I was still in a recovery mode from postpartum. I mean, from my labor and birth. And my mom gently knocked on the door, and she walked in. She said, "Let me hold him for a little bit. Why don't you go lie down and get some sleep?" And it was a gift. It was a gift. So having that support made all the difference. And I was navigating the internal message that so many of us have that says, "Wait, I'm the mom. I should be able to figure this out." And I will often say that that's kind of the way that we treat ourselves as new parents is not how we would treat our infants. We're often far less kind to ourselves than we are to our newborns. Like, our newborns come out and we're not looking at them saying, "Why aren't you running? Why don't you use these legs to run?" You know, this wailing about doesn't get you anywhere. We expect them to take a developmental journey. We expect them to go from being kinda, "I don't know how to be on this planet," to, oh, I'm kind of coming into my body, to, oh, I'm able to move my body, to, oh, I can roll over, I can scoot, I can crawl, I can walk, I can run in a progression that makes sense over a long period of time. But as parents, we don't give ourselves that same respect. We are we are born as a parent in a moment. Maybe it's when our child is born or when we first adopt or when we get our baby through surrogacy. However that moment of becoming a parent happens, we become a parent and we think we should know how to run. Think we should be expert at it, an expert at our baby right off the bat. And yet we are only as old of a parent as our child is. So if we've got a 1 day old, like in my story, I had a, 1.5 day old baby, and I was a 1.5 day old mom.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't know how to do everything. I couldn't do it all in that moment. I couldn't figure out, was it okay that my baby was crying and that everything I was trying wasn't soothing him? Was it okay to hand him to my mom and go climb into bed and let her hold him while he was crying? He was still gonna cry. It was he was needing to cry. And the answer was yes, but that doesn't mean it was okay. And I was doing the best that I could. And so much of the messaging was working against me, even if I was doing my best.
Course. Right. And so what's this if that's like the story that most people are defaulting to, like I should know how to do this, what's the story we would replace that with potentially?
Oh, I think again, it connects to the openness to the unbidden. It it connects to, I sometimes call it the wise inner parent, which is like an internalized voice in our head that speaks to us with the kind of voice we want to use with our children. Like when our child falls down, many of us these days don't go, get up, brush it off, you're fine. That's not typically what people are doing these days. I mean, we all have our moments, and our inner voice has the moments too. But instead, if our child falls down, we may say, oops, look at that, you fell down. Do you need a hand? Can I support you? How are you? I'm right here. I'm here for you. Yeah. Oh, did you skin your knee? I bet that hurts. Yeah, I'm right here. And that same voice is helpful to ourselves. So that can be a voice that I often feel it by putting my hand on my heart and having that connection that says, ooh, ouch, Britta, that hurt. Or you really wish that you had done that better, don't you? It makes sense. It's okay. It's okay to wish that you had done that better. I'm here for you. You are enough. It's comments and so much of it is in the tone that we speak to ourselves, even more than the words, because we've kind of got a lot of judging energy in the sphere in what I sometimes refer to as the overculture, which is that messaging that presses down on us and tells us our shoulds. That overculture messaging tends to show up in a lot of judgments. You should be, da, 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 don't fall down. Can't you walk straight? All the judging voices. But what tends to happen is when we have that judging kind of voice of, or the version, I should have been able to comfort my child when I was absolutely exhausted. I should have been able to do that better. What tends to come in as the antidote is actually another type of judgment. And I sometimes say if one side is the judge dressed up in a judge's cloak with a gavel, the other one is dressed up in a cheerleading outfit with pom-poms. And it comes in and it goes, "No, Britta, you're the best. You've got this. You're da 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 da." But in reality, that is still a judging kind of voice. And when we come in with that energy of, "You're the best, you're awesome, you're such a good mom," all of that, it can actually activate the judge with the gavel to come in with more ways to tell you you suck. Whereas that wise inner voice disarms the judge. The judge doesn't have anything to fight back with. If you come in and go, "Ouch, yeah, you wished it had been different. You wished you'd been able to do it easy in an easier or better way. That makes sense. You are so
Yeah.
lovable. You are so
Yeah.
enough."
And you have more opportunities to try again.
Yeah. Yeah, just like we would with our children when they have something that in their path, stumbles them in their path. They we might sit down next to them and go, "Ooch, ouch, that was hard. Yeah. I see that you hurt yourself. I'm here for you. I love you. How would you like to try it again?"
And Britta, what do you think the value of modeling that self-care for our children has?
I think it's so important. I think it's so important, and it's the kind of self-care that goes far beyond bubble baths and massages. It's the kind of self-care that we can have with us all the time. And in a society that asks so much of our children and our youth to be ever performing, ever hustling for approval, hustling for their cookies, that to be able to model for them, "Ouch, that's hard," or I see you trying. I see that you wish it were different," or "I'm here for you as you navigate that which you didn't expect." They need that. They need that so much so that they can begin to establish that inner voice in themselves. And having adults now as children, I can see it happening. And I see it also at times not happening, but I can see it also happening because this isn't, the last cultural ideal that I address in the book is the quest and illusion of perfection. And I
Right.
think that's a really important one to always come back to, even when we're talking about a different way to do things. It's remembering that even the inner voice, developing a kind inner voice or a wise, loving inner voice is still gonna fail sometimes, and the judge or the cheerleader is gonna come in and pass judgment or be a rah-rah that is just another form of judgment. It's gonna happen because being human means we don't have perfection. Perfection is in Greek mythology, there's stories and things about hubris. And hubris, which is that idea that we are as good as gods, we are perfect, it ends poorly for those mortals, always, if they are hubric, if they have hubris. And that is a good reminder to us that our humility as humans, and those are connected, really matter.
So, Britta, before we were recording, we were talking about mythology and the role of mythology in storytelling. in sharing some of this wisdom intergenerationally. And that's kind of touching on the modeling of behavior example we just discussed. But there's so much we can learn from storytelling as well. Is there a story that comes to mind when you think of the fourth trimester and some of the wisdom that we can share with our listeners?
Yes, and this connects also to that place of what it is that is the wisdom within us and how do we process. And it's a longer fairy tale. It's the story of Vasilisa the Beautiful or Vasilisa the Brave is often there. It comes in a few different versions, but it's a story that kind of will remind folks of Cinderella, but it's a young girl. I'm going to give a super like abbreviated version of it, but storytelling can be really helpful in the archetypal aspects of it that help us see ourselves as every character in the story. And so whether it's myth or fairy tale, it works great. So a quick version of Vasilisa is she's a young girl. She has a stepmother and stepsisters. Her father is absent, and they let the fire go out in the house. And they send Vasilisa into the forest to retrieve fire. They send her into the forest to retrieve fire from Baba Yaga. And so Vasilisa is like, all right, I'm innocent. I don't really understand. I'll head into the forest. And she begins her journey, but she, before her mother died, was given a doll. And her mother said, take this doll, put it in your pocket. And whenever you have a question, put your hand in your pocket and ask your doll. Feed the doll, give it water, and when you need it, ask for questions. Now, the doll really represents that inner knowing, that wisdom of the ancestors, the wisdom of our own deep knowing. And so she puts her doll in her pocket, heads towards the forest. She doesn't know if she should go this way or that way or which way she should go, but she feeds the doll, gives it water, and asks it for its help, and it guides her. And she eventually comes to the house of Baba Yaga, which is a great image in its own right because it's a hut that runs around on chicken legs. It is not grounded in the earth, and it's fenced with bones and skulls. It is an embodiment of the wild nature, which Vasilisa has lost touch with. She has become overly submissive, accommodating, people pleasing, all those things that so many of us that are enculturated in female bodies learn in spades and that start to get reinforced even for those of us who kind of have careers and are badasses in this way and that way. When we become mothers, there's like this old programming can come on and we can become more people pleasing and more accommodating, more self-sacrificing. All of those things Vasilisa has done. And so it is as if she needs to go and have an interaction with the wild nature that is embodied by Baba Yaga. And she goes to the house and says, Baba Yaga, I need fire. Now, fire can be representative of passion, creativity, vibrancy. It has so many different associations. And she's basically saying, I need these things in my life. And Baba Yaga says, well, girl, you are not going to get fire from me until you serve me, which is important. And so Vasilisa says, all right, I guess I'll do that. So she does her washing. She sweeps the house. She does all these tending things that Baba Yaga asks her to do. And she tells her that she has to sort the poppy seeds from the dirt. And if you take a moment and imagine a poppy seed and imagine dirt, That is a task that is impossible. And so Vasilisa is worried she'll ever get it done. Her doll says, "Don't worry, sleep now. I will take care of it," which is an important message because sometimes we need to let the unconscious do the work. And so when she wakes, her doll has sorted the poppy seeds from the dirt, which another way of thinking that is the magical from the mundane. Poppy seeds are associated with magic, with magical thinking, with altered states. And dirt is like the everything. And she's helped sort that. And then the next night, Baba Yaga asks her to sort the corn that is edible from the corn that is mildewed, that which is healthy from that which is not. And again, Vasilisa's worried about it, but her doll says, "Don't worry, I got you." She goes to sleep. She wakes up. She's sorted it. Again, that what is nourishing from what is not helpful to us is another task that is needed in that postpartum period. What nourishes me? What is okay to eat, ingest, read, participate in? And what is actually toxic? And once she's gone through all of these things, then Baba Yaga is like, "How'd you get so wise?" And she basically says, "Oh, it's from the blessing of my mother," which is the doll. And Baba Yaga's like, "We want none of that. We want no blessings. Go on, skedaddle here, take some fire, head home." Which Vasilisa does. She takes the fire from Baba Yaga, returns home, and the fire burns up the viciousness in her home. And I think that I mean, there's a lot of different nuances and elements in this story, but I gave you as quick a version as I could. But this story to me is a lot about what it is that we need. We need to have that doll in our pocket that we remember to feed and give water to and ask questions. That at the same time, we do that while nurturing and retrieving and engaging with and connecting with the Baba Yaga within us, the wildish energy that lives outside the bounds of civilized society. It's about having all of that. And new parenthood tends to make us forget about our fire.
Yeah.
And our fire is necessary. And being in that place of not knowing how to do something, being so changed by an experience of becoming a parent, puts us in that place of, "Stepmother, tell me what I need to do. Tell me what I need to do. I will please you. I will follow you. I will do what it is I need to do." And new parents who are integrated are connected to their own doll in their pocket, their intuition, and their wild-ish nature, their fiery, creative, unique personal self that is embodied by the Baba Yaga in this story. We need both. So feed your intuition and head into the forest and meet your wildish nature. That's the message of that story.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that story and in this entire conversation, sharing your wisdom with us. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share with listeners before we sign off?
I think that we've touched on a lot of them. I mean, my number one probably connects back in with what I was saying about being kind to ourselves, developing that kind inner voice, and remembering that we are only as old as our children are. That I am just now a parent who has a grandchild and a son getting married and another child connected out in the world. I'm like, I don't know yet how to be a parent of more than that. I'm not that old yet. I'm still in this moment, just as a newborn parent doesn't yet know how to send a child off to college because they're still figuring out how to make it through a night. So one moment at a time.
So, where can people go to learn more about you?
Well, my book is Transformed by Birth, and that's also the name of my podcast where I share stories. I have a longer version of the Vasilisa story recorded as an episode of my podcast. So if people want to listen to that, they can. And my Instagram is Britta Bushnell, PhD. And that's a place where I post regularly, as well as Transformed by Birth, which is also for the podcast. So those are probably the best. Oh, and my website, BrittaBushnell.com.
We will link to all of those resources in the show notes to make that very easy for people to follow up with you and find you. Thank you again for a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.